Unscripted.
John Stossel is the most decorated libertarian I know, an award-winning journalist, an Emmy award-winning journalist, an analytical thinker, and a brave juggernaut who's not afraid to take a hit. Stossel is the highest-rated show on the Fox Business Network. It airs in this time slot, Thursday nights. He's been my boss for the last year and a half, and he's a patient and wonderful mentor, and he hates compliments. The show this week is called Defending the Free Market. Here's a look.
We are all socialists now.
The problem with Obamacare isn't too much socialism, it's still too much capitalism.
The socialists are here.
Corporate greed has got to go.
And they make a powerful argument.
If you've been successful, you didn't get there on your own.
You didn't build that.
But you're building this, and I don't want to talk about my show tonight. I'm just blown away in that I remember watching the first 2020, and it just was bad. And
don't worry, the backhanded compliment's coming, guys. Yeah.
I was worried. This is your first show, but you're doing great here. This is intelligent, fun. Nobody's lost.
Do you like the subject matter so far?
Yeah.
You've been a great mentor.
Also, these two guests you had, I didn't know who they were, but they're good. I don't mean the hosts, I mean the two guests who left. Well, they're good too.
No, they're fantastic. And we're trying to find people who are kind of warm, who aren't just going to argue and bite each other's faces.
Well, that's television. You want a little biting of faces. You're a face biter.
You're feeling too much about a personal life, John. What does it mean to be a libertarian?
No, tell us about you're calling this The Independence,
yes.
And that's the title of Matt's book. And
the Declaration of Independence, and that's a great point. Matt Welch, the editor-in-chief of Reason magazine, one of the Independents, co-wrote a book with Nick Gillespie, who's the editor-in-chief of Reason TV, called The Declaration of Independence. What is wrong with American? We can totally fix it, bro.
Yeah.
Isn't that the subtitle?
Close enough.
But the Declaration of Independence, a great book, a libertarian primer, a must-read.
But this word libertarian, people don't know what it means. I mean, I assume you know, this audience knows, but I'm constantly amazed how few people get it. If you say classical liberal, fewer people get that. I grew up a liberal. I had never heard of it. I just knew that government there were problems, and we had wise people in Washington, and you can't get your brain around all the problems, so it makes sense that the smart, Harvard-educated people, like our president, were going to appoint people to fix it. And then I became a consumer reporter, and I saw.
What was the final turn, though? What was the final issue that made you a libertarian? Instead of flirting with the ideas of economic and civil liberties, what was it that sealed it?
This segment isn't long enough for me to fully explain that, but I kept cheering on regulation, and I watched it fail. That story's too long. I have to dump that one. And then I saw this liberal philosophy isn't working. I turned to the National Review and the conservative press, and they wanted to regulate our bedrooms and declare war on everyone. I didn't like that until I discovered Reason magazine, which Matt now edits, and oh my God, these people really understand this. They understand it far better than I do. This is a philosophy from John Locke, from Aristotle, that just makes sense. How can we have gone so wrong?
No, it's so consistent, and these two can testify. We've seen so many failures of the government and the federal government. So, I mean, I'm surprised at this wave of socialism that's taking over.
And that's what my show is about. But to me, I've learned that it makes sense partly because you're weird, you're unusual. You're especially unusual because you're paying attention, you care about this stuff. Most people have lives. No, that's not fair. You have lives. But most people are interested in...
We're the Susan Boyle of
sports, sex, food, fashion. They don't pay attention to this stuff. And if you don't pay close attention, instinct says, problem, people are hurting, we want government to fix it. It's just intuitive. When we were young, mommy and daddy fixed it. For thousands of years of evolution, if you were in the tribe and you didn't harvest the fruit when the tribal elders said you ought to, you starved and you didn't give birth to us. So we're programmed to trust central planners. The invisible hand is tougher to grasp. It's invisible, for one thing.
When does that rational element take over, though? That thing that is so
after
necessary
your
for a
show
functioning
takes
society.
off and explains it to everybody.
Do you feel like that people have gotten out of the business of robustly defending capitalism? In the 50s, people were always talking about capitalism and socialism, and Ronald Reagan was giving speeches paid for by GE and all this kind of stuff. Your show tomorrow is going to be talking about defending capitalism. Have people kind of gotten out of the game thinking that maybe we won the argument after the end of the Cold War, so we don't have to talk about it as much?
Well, I was never even aware of people defending in the 50s. I thought it was always icky, selfish. It was the rich taking advantage of the poor.
Maybe it was only that Gordon Gekko moment from Wall Street. Greed is good.
That was a big moment. But if you listen to the full speech or the play, Other People's Money, that it was based on, there was truth in it. It was that if you spend other people's money, you don't spend it well. And the capitalists spending their own money will do it better. But it just people who aren't paying close attention don't get that.
Well, John, we do have a pretty tough sell to make. Are you optimistic about the future?
No.
Ouch.
But I never have been. I never thought welfare reform was possible. Thomas Jefferson said it's the natural progress of things for government to grow and liberty to yield ground. And that is what has happened. And government continues to grow. Every year they add another few thousand pages of rules. They rarely repeal anything. No kid goes to the state capitol and says, Congressman, what laws have you repealed?
Yay, what can you do next? John, thank you so much. Will you please come back?
Yes.
I adore you, John Stossel, for the record. All right, it's cold throughout much of the country. As the mercury drops, the giving goes up, right? You hear a lot about the war on Christmas, but what about the war on hobos? Shutting down soup kitchens, empty bowls filled with only the tears of those most in need.
No.
Next. Yes, yes.